Welcome back to Eintracht Frankfurt, the Bundesliga podcast covering everything there is to know in the English language about Eintracht Frankfurt, the feels like perpetually sixth best team in the Bundesliga. We'll get to that one in a little bit. First, how to get in contact with the show. Of course, you can go to HEFpod.com. We've got all of our socials linked on there and quite a few other features that are being updated as we speak. I want to thank everyone that went to HEFpod.com this weekend. We had our record viewership, record visits to the site, almost 300 unique IP visits logged this weekend, most of them in the statistics zone. I think it's someone found out this weekend that our data is more up to date than ESPN. That is not a joke. That is a real thing. Our data is second to none thanks to Sports Monks. Not a paid advertisement, just giving them a shout out because our data is better than ESPN. So check out the statistics zone, HEFpod.com. Of course, Instagram at Eintracht Frankfurt and X, formerly known as Twitter, at HEFpod. My co-host today was part of our Twitter feed this weekend, keeping things up to date during that miserable match with Leverkusen. I had the luxury of taking care of the Frauen match against Hoffenheim. But I'm with my co-host tonight on episode 313 from a gentleman who works in the 313, spends a lot of his time in the 313. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's a Detroit thing. Garret, happy 313.
Indeed. 313 is a magical thing. It is especially a magical thing when you account one of our favorite local teams from the 313, gave us a feeling of joy that Eintracht Frankfurt used to give us more consistently. But I'll leave it as the magic of the cup for right now as a little tease.
The U.S. Open Cup, I'm going right into it. There's no tease. Detroit City FC beating Houston Dynamo of MLS. That was, there's a reason we're a little tired today. We were talking offline. Neither of us went to bed at an appropriate hour. You know that feeling when Eintracht was winning cups and going to finals, when you're up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning because your heart doesn't stop racing. If you want to see a great finish, check out the highlights on YouTube or elsewhere of Detroit City and the Houston Dynamo. 11 rounds into PKs last night. Detroit makes 10 of 11 PKs, the winner from the goalie. Just outstanding match. We're not here for that one, but hey, we run the show now, so we get to say what we want to say, right? Till Brian comes back and he can talk about, something else. But we did what we had to do last night, and we're going to do what we have to do tonight, which is going to be not quite as fun, but we got to get into it, Garret. So
yeah,
let's do it. Chronological order, go back to Saturday, May 4th, the better half of the weekend. Eintracht Frankfurt, Frauen 3 and Hoffenheim 1. So I made a mistake not doing enough research going into this one. And I found out that in the previous 4 matches, we had scored 3 goals against Hoffenheim in each of the past 4 matches. So that probably should have played into my prediction. It didn't. But once again, for the 5th match in a row, we score 3 goals against Hoffenheim. And it was one of those matches, again, everyone should have been watching because we talked about its broadcast on Dotson last week. It was a businesslike performance. We teased it as the winner is in the driver's seat for Champions League, and the Eagles took care of business outside of a first-minute attempt from Hoffenheim, and then a very last-minute goal, which last-minute goal we'll touch on in a bit. Really businesslike performance. Laura Freigang made her return, which is outstanding. She scored and got on the score sheet with a nice assist on a Wolter finish that opened the scoring. Nicole Anyomi doing what she does, scoring 2 goals. Just an outstanding effort. Garret, I don't know if you had a chance to see the match, but I know you certainly saw the highlights and did your research afterwards. How'd you feel about it?
I really enjoyed it. I think it was one of those, as you said it best, it was a business-like performance. And, we won 3-1. We could have rolled away with it a bit more than that. Once again, Nicole Anyomi just proving to be an absolute difficult matchup, it seems, for, I don't even want to say most teams. I feel like any team that's playing us, she's causing havoc. And, another brace could have been more. And, when it came to ask questions of how tough this squad was after, maybe some unfortunate results in the middle portion of the season, they're stepping up and they're showing out. And I think I'll give credit to Nico. I'll give credit to the ladies on, really kicking it into gear in this final stretch of the season. And, here's hoping they can close that season out in that style.
We got on Nico in the mid portion of the season for lacking in the table. And, and they got bounced from Champions League and bounced from the Cup. Just not the kind of expectations. The expectations we had coming into the year were silverware in whatever form or fashion. I didn't really care, but we had to come home with something, and we didn't. And in that regard, it's a little bit of a disappointment this season. But the way that they're closing things out and winning the matches that they have to win, putting themselves in a good place to qualify for Champions League next year, 2 weeks left and 4 points clear. I'm no longer ready to run Nico out. It has not entirely as much to do with his tactics, because I still think there's some room to work with. I think we're underutilizing certain players at certain positions, but they're taking care of business. And would I like it to have been done against other teams earlier? Yes, but they're still showing fight. They're still showing resolve. And they, barring it just an absolute disaster of a finish, they are going to go to Champions League for the second year in a row. And that is, for me, it's not just qualifying them once. As I keep saying with the men's side, you have to qualify for Champions League multiple times and build upon the experience of the first time and then improve your second time out. So
100% agree on that. Yeah.
Yeah. We struggled like hell in Champions League this year, but with the experience we had, with the adversity that we faced, I think there's an opportunity, and we're going to talk in a minute about some roster changes coming here, but I think there's an opportunity to make some real noise next year. Players moving in and out of Bayern and Wolfsburg, they're still the gold standard in the league. But I think Eintracht Frankfurt is put no doubt that they are clearly in that top three.
Yeah, I think it's going to be we're in the steps in the right direction, but to be a player in this game of Frauen Bundesliga, this is, eventually we're going to get past the point of just getting into the top three. It's going to be, you got to be a hunt for that top two, maybe even getting the title. Because I think when it comes to Frankfurt and, the Meisterschale, whatever way, the Frauen are a lot closer to it than the men. So I think this is a golden, whatever they got to do to keep getting into that step. Here's hoping they do it.
Yeah. And, we're going to have plenty of time at the end of the season to talk about what happens next year. But you're right. The expectations are not going down. There is no rebuild. There's not going to be any major replacement of major names or faces. The core that has been built over the last couple of years is the core that we're going to move forward with. There's going to be a couple faces going out, as have been discussed, but a couple new faces coming in. A note, Ilyada Achikos, she tore her ACL a couple of weeks ago. Was that Leipzig? No, it was after that. I don't recall. But she tore her ACL.
Was it Leverkusen?
Yeah, it might have been. They're all running together this late in the year. But she had surgery on that this week. She's out for the remainder of the season. But I think at 19 years old, we saw the upside of her development. And of course, her sister, they both had extraordinary experience of playing in Champions League at such a young age. They're going to be cogs to taking that next step next year. And another extension, contract wise, Anna Eiling extended her contract another year. And then a signing that just came out this morning, actually, Nina Yersin signed for Eintracht. She's been her entire career a youth development product from Werder Bremen. She just made her 100th Bundesliga appearance this past weekend, had a goal and an assist, 14 career goals, 100 appearances, mostly at the left back position, but she is pretty versatile. She's moved around a few times. That is a big signing for us. A 24-year-old with 100 Bundesliga appearances and the ability to get on the score sheet is really going to help us next year, because we're going to take that next step. You're going to have to find those players that when the Anyomi isn't scoring or Freigang goes 3 or 4 games off the score sheet, where's that depth scoring going to come from? We are going to lose some talent this year. Who is the big one that I forgot about? Someone said it out. It's
let me take a
dead air.
Let me
dead
look
air
here.
Is good air.
Let me see. Yeah.
Hanshaw, right?
Hanshaw's going to Roma.
Yep. That's the big one I was thinking of. Yeah. So my point being that there's going to be some roster turnover, but the core is coming back, and the youngest part of our core that's still under development has shown that they're ready to take that next step. So I think next year looks good. We still got 2 weeks to go, ending out the Frauen Bundesliga talk. We'll look at the last 2 matches. The first one coming up this weekend. But, let's go to the table first. Eintracht Frankfurt safely in third, 38 points, with Hoffenheim on their tail at 34 points. We've won 4 out of 5. We're in good form going into the end. I'm not too worried about where we're headed, to be honest. Last 2 matches, this Monday against Freiburg, which we'll preview in a bit, and then, following Monday against Cologne. So, 2 lower teams in the table to finish it out, but certainly everything can be tough if you don't keep your focus. Garret, anything else on the Frauen?
I think it's just keep going in the right direction. This could have been when we lost to Leverkusen in particular, and that back-to-back to Wolfsburg and even Leipzig. The Moody Diva could have gone out in full force, and it didn't. They regrouped. If anything, they've been sharper in some of the best ball they've played all year. Finish out strong and get ready for next season.
Absolutely. So we talked about the good side of the weekend. Now we got to talk about the bad and the ugly side. Sunday, May 5th, the host Eintracht Frankfurt 1, Bayer Leverkusen 5. That's a handful of goals. We're going to get into it a little bit, but before we talk about the X's and O's, Garret, they kept showing Xavi Alonso up in the box or wherever his coaching box was at. Maybe it's the North American in me, but when you are suspended, how are you really suspended? If you're in contact, if you're in the stadium, if you're on the radio, on the phone, whatever communication device he's using, and you're making all the calls, you're talking to your assistants, you're giving players direction, how are you really suspended? Am I off base with this? Like, what's the point of giving a suspension for accumulation of cards if you can still participate and do your job fully and actually with a better view from upstairs?
I think, if anything, I'm not used so much to seeing coaches suspended here in North America unless they do something like throw chair, like, whatever Bobby Knight used to do.
Right.
So I think it's a little bit different, how they're doing it. And they're starting to really, in the game in general, not just in the Bundesliga, but in Europe in general, they're really disciplined. They're making sure that, coaches, managers, are held to a certain accountable. And yeah, there's some questions maybe about that, but I also, as we will talk about, it needs not matter that he was, even if he wasn't at the Waldstadion, I don't think that really would have affected how things happened on Sunday.
No, and I'm certainly not putting it on there. The concept of, is it really a suspension? To be honest, he's seeing the play better from upstairs than he would from his position in the coach's box. So I don't know how you're really suspending the guy. If anything, you're giving him more resources and more ability to call a better match. Certainly it affected the outcome of this one in no way. I'm not trying to make that point. Just something off the pitch that really seemed weird to me. Feel free to light me up on Twitter. Americans don't understand anything, but it's not really a suspension. I mean, if that's how we're going to suspend coaches, I might recommend that Dino go out and get suspended because he doesn't see the game well from the sideline anyway. Let's put him up in the box where he's got a better view. He might see something that he likes better that way. Anyway.
For Dino to get suspended, he needs to show emotion, which I kind of don't really see him do.
That's fair. I've done everything I can to avoid the actual play on the pitch, but here's the thing. When they went down early, granted, Xhaka, a great shot. I mean, that dude is really good. He can strike the ball really well. And that first goal, 12 minutes in, whatever, we're down early. It's going to be another one of those days. But I kind of liked our response. It took a little bit to get warmed up, but Ekitike comes through again. And I need your opinion on this one. Did we break the scoreless from the corner streak? Because let's go through it. There was a short corner played. Götze passes to Marmoush. Marmoush out to Chaibi. Chaibi puts it in the air. Ekitike's head puts it in the goal. When you have three passes, is that still play off of a corner, or do we just need to say the streak is still going? I don't know.
I don't really call it a full-on corner set-piece goal in a way, because it looked like it was almost a broken play at first. Had it been, say, a ball into the box, it goes off a head into something else, I'm more inclined to be like, yeah, that's a corner goal. It is a set-piece type situation, maybe, but I won't call it a goal directly off of a corner. A corner, it came after a corner, but not directly from a corner. However, Ekitike, 3-3, really happy for that dude.
Absolutely. I mean, everything has clicked for him. He appears to be playing better minutes. He's got more energy. Just really the guy we thought we were getting has finally arrived. It took a little longer than we'd expected, but he's here. And what you're seeing is a guy who can do it in different ways. He can do it one-on-one, which we've seen. He can do it with his head off the ball. Really a guy who's high energy, high tactical ability, and he's ours for a while. I don't think there's any threat of losing him. Obviously not this summer, but in the next year or so, I think he has a lot more to prove than some other guys that have left for greener pastures, supposedly greener pastures. But I think he's ours for a while. And if he keeps developing like this, I think that's probably our brightest piece going forward. And 2-3 weeks ago, none of us wanted this signing. None of us wanted to exercise that release clause from PSG. But, we had to trust Marcus Kroosche and the technical squad. And I think he's done everything to prove that he was worth that money so far. Don't you think?
Yeah. I think I think it was concerning that he wasn't match fit when he joined, let alone not even, getting that much time to train. But I then counter that if you're a professional football player and you may not be in team training, you're going to find the ways to keep fit and sharp. However, maybe this is his first chance to be like putting the work in to get the results. So, there's great upside for him. I think here he's just got to be the one to go and do it.
Yeah. And, he's kind of looking like Marmoush was early in the year, where the goal a game situation really makes you feel comfortable with where he's going. What I would like to see is a little more play between those two, with Ekitike and Marmoush combining together up high. I mean, skill wise, they're both excellent. One-on-one or as individuals, they've done great things, but I haven't really seen a lot between the two yet. But certainly with a summer to work together and a preseason camp, that could all change if there's interest out there in Marmoush, but he's kind of quieted down recently. And he's the next one on my naughty list here. because in the 42nd minute, he gets in on a nice pass from Ekitike. He's going in all by himself and one-on-one with the keeper, and he sails it. I mean, look, you're playing the league champs. They've already locked it up. You're not playing excellent, but when you have a chance to go up before the half, that could have been a game changer. And to sail that shot over the goal, there was a little bit of pressure coming down on him, but I don't think it was so much that it should have rattled him. He's one that I expect to finish that off. The fact he didn't, and then not even 100 seconds later, Leverkusen scores. So instead of Frankfurt going into the tunnel at the half with the lead, they go down with a deficit. I think that's kind of the point where we all realized, Patrick Schick's goal was going to be the game winner at that point.
Yeah, and it got unfortunately really ugly after that. It's my thing with Marmoush is it was a great ball from Ekitike, but you're, 8 to 10 yards from there. How is that ball going? 1 airborne and 2 airborne to the point that it would have been the Lions could talk about him being a potential field goal kicker. I don't know. Just,
and then he kind of looks like that.
You give championship teams off the hook, they're going to make you pay. And Schick did that. And then it got worse.
You kind of got that feeling after the Schick goal that even the change in the locker room, I mean, I talk about it constantly, that middle 20 minutes, 10 before, 10 after the break, changes everything. You can usually tell how a match is going to play out based on that middle 20. And we certainly saw it here. That was a 2-goal swing by not scoring one and then giving it up at the other end. And after that, it was just kind of icing on the cake for Leverkusen. They poured it on, but it wasn't necessarily them taking advantage of, good opportunities. We just kind of fell asleep and let them take over. Is there any positives to take out of this? I hate playing this game because I don't believe in moral victories, but I thought individual performances like Ekitike were good. Götze still not where we want him to be, but I thought he brought some good stuff. Is there anything good to take out of this into the last 2 weeks of the season?
Chaibi had some good service linking in. I think you're seeing him play more out wide now with Ekitike coming in. Maybe Bahoya a little bit in the minutes that he got coming on near the end of the match, but it's I don't really have much positives. The only positives that I could say was I was actually turned out to be happy that you asked me to cover the Twitter for the match because I got to unwind and use banter as a form of therapy, and I think a lot of people enjoyed that also. So at least we have that.
It does help. I mean, when the game is lost, just go with sarcasm. It works. But, I look at some of the guys that came off the bench. Knauf, Nacho Ferry, Buta, Larson, Bahoya. Those are guys that are going to be around again next year. And I think in the last couple matches here, we're going to talk about the table after the break, but those are guys I want to see play. I get the feeling that we're not going to see Mario Götze next year. If we didn't see him over the next 2 weeks, I don't think it would be the worst thing. Let's get Larson out there. Let's get Nacho Ferry out there. Let's get Buta out there. I mean, where are you at this point? I don't want to talk about the table. That's for later. But are we at a point now where we got to look with an eye towards next year, or should we still be focusing on closing out each match?
I think we don't have 6 completely locked up yet. We need to get that locked up first. And even I think you beat Monchengladbach over the weekend, you're in 6th, and your place in the table is set. But I do want to kind of look at a little bit next year because we do have some players that we know are coming over, already agreed to contracts, but yet not yet joined. And we got to figure out all right, who of those ones that we have currently are we hey, how much of a future do they have with us? And then you also got to look at, there is maybe I don't know how much turnovers there's going to be in the off season, but I would think there'd be a little bit. The question, so I think these last two matches are a good indicator of the squad, but also maybe how is Dino gonna react these last two matches after Leverkusen? I think you referred to it as a B plus side. I almost was going to say a B side, with how many changes they made after leg one of the Europa League semifinal, and they kicked the shit out of us on our own pitch.
Yeah.
That's a morale boot. That's a morale punch in a way. So how are we going to respond? I think that's what I want to see. How do we react after this? And is this a summer of uncertainty, or is it steps in the right direction? We'll see.
Yeah, you're right. And, Leverkusen that's a bad measuring stick for where we are, because they're still unbeaten across every competition this year. And to, measure where we are at this point in the year based on that performance is probably the wrong one. We got to measure up against others around us. And that's why we're going to talk about the table in a bit. But Garrett, it's been a long day. You and I did not sleep because of our DCFC situation last night. I'm still watching that replay over and over. That Nicole Anyomi goal against Hoffenheim, that blistering shot from outside the box, kind of looked like Ryan Williams from Detroit City last night. Just an open right foot, putting it in the upper 90. What's that?
Without a doubt. I was going to say it was without a doubt. It caught me. I'm really looking because that match started off painful. And then I'm like, we need a break. And then I was like, okay, here's the break. Let's go.
Shout out to Houston Dynamo fan and contributor to the show, Brian, over in Nebraska. Sorry, buddy. Not actually really sorry. But Garrett, I had a couple beverages last night. Had the pleasure of meeting up with you over the weekend as well. What have you been eating? What have you been drinking to celebrate all things Eintracht and Detroit City?
So I want to give a shout out to our buddy Ken Butcher and his bar that he currently GMs, Paint Creek Yacht Club in Rochester.
Yes.
Hung out with you guys on Saturday earlier in the day. Shout out to Johnny Mac's Bayside in Ira Township in the Thumb here. Great food, especially the cod Reuben that I had, and the bread, which was really, really good. Tried non-alcoholic beer over the weekend. Shout out to Sierra Nevada and their Trail Pass Golden. Highly recommend it. A nice, crisp, refreshing drink, especially if you're one not looking to get into the heavy buzz. Had Wendy's tonight to enjoy before recording here, so they always tend to hit the spot. And yeah, plenty of things. I'm having water now, but I'll definitely probably, after we record, pour a glass of Milo's sweet tea, which you can get at any Meijer, Kroger, Publix, whatever type big store on there. So shout outs to all of them.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's been a good food and drink week. We were at a wedding this weekend, had excellent food and drink there. I'm finishing off the last tonight of my haul from Madison, Wisconsin, from back in March, from Carbon 4 Brewing, the Fantasy Factory IPA, which has maybe my favorite can art in history. It's a unicorn shooting fire out of its nostrils, being ridden by a cat with a pistol in its hand. And there's a lot going on here. This is some of the best can art I've ever seen. Carbon 4 Brewing, Fantasy Factory. Well done art. Very good beer from Madison, Wisconsin. They do beer pretty good over there. We were just talking about that in our Discord chat, actually. Before we go to the break, I want to thank everybody who reached out with feedback over the last few weeks. Good feedback on our website. As I mentioned earlier, we got a record number of hits there over the weekend, and we're hoping to keep that going forward. We've been talking to Sport Monks about expanding some statistic things. So we're really going to work on that over the summer. If you want to give more feedback on that, please hit me up on social media, hit up the show, use our contact list from the website at HEFpod.com. But yeah, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a few minutes with segment 2. Cheers. Welcome back. Segment 2, Hey Eintracht Frankfurt, episode 313. I am Chris in Michigan, and Garrett right down I-96 as well. It's an all-Michigan episode again. And Garrett, we're going to bounce around the Bundesliga a little bit. Bounce around the Bundesliga with some table talk. Let's start with the 2 Bundesliga. There was some activity there last week impacting it was supposed to impact, and then it didn't really have much of an impact yet on the promotion situation there. Hamburg defeated St. Pauli 1-0, defending their home turf and keeping their slim chances of promotion alive. This is usually the time of year where Hamburg finds a way to slide down the table, but they've held things together a little bit. They're sitting at 4th on 55 points. That actually dropped St. Pauli that lost because Holstein Kiel won and St. Pauli lost. St. Pauli dropped 2nd on 63 points. 3rd place, Dusseldorf at 59. So they're looking like they're solidly, with 2 weeks left, they're on 59 points. Hamburg needs a lot of help to get into that playoff position. But it's going to be interesting. Looking ahead at match day 33 this weekend, a couple matches that will have an impact on the table. The big one, Holstein Kiel and Dusseldorf, Saturday. That's 2:30 here in the States, 8:30 in Germany. That's basically going to have impact in 2 ways. Is Holstein Kiel going to be at the top of the table going into the final week? And is Dusseldorf going to lock up either the playoff spot or make a very late push for the 2 spot with the automatic promotion? I say it every year, Garrett, the 2 Bundesliga is the best race in Europe. And once again, it's playing out that way. No matter what happens this weekend, barring total insanity with St. Pauli losing to 18th place Osnabrück, we should go into the final week of the season still waiting for a result there. Is it not the best year after year race to the finish?
Another one from the bottom of the table you want to look at for league match day 33. 16th place Wehen Wiesbaden, who are currently in the promotion relegation spot. They would be playing a 2-legged playoff with the 3rd place team in the Dritte Bundesliga. They take on Eintracht Braunschweig, who are ahead of them, 3 points ahead. So that's one. Hansa Rostock, who's a point behind Wiesbaden, they got to go take on Schalke, who are 11th. So there is a lot of potential on here. St. Paul, Dusseldorf, Holstein Kiel really sets the winner of that, sets the tone for the final match day, which is, Wiesbaden's got to take hosting St. Pauli, Dusseldorf SC Magdeburg, Kaiserslautern, you would think are out or safe enough to not be in the relegation trouble or in the playoff, but considering also that they have a Pokal final. It's gonna be wild, and the funny thing about it is, just when you think you know what the table's gonna be like, surprise. Yeah, we're gonna see more of that, I think.
Let's talk about that for just a second. Where's your priority there? If you're Kaiserslautern, you don't want to get relegated. But if you take your foot off the pedal, you could technically, by the numbers, end up in that relegation promotion playoff battle. But then also you got to think about facing a still unbeaten Leverkusen, potentially going for the perfect season in the cup. That's a lot to handle for a second division team without a ton of depth, that's really struggled in league play. To make a run in the cup like that could really, what it could do for your European prospects too, to finish in near the bottom of your division domestically, but then also end up in Europa League would be a hell of an accomplishment, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost in a way similar to what we were talking about October of 2021, November of 21, when we were not doing great in the Bundesliga, yet we were undefeated in our group. And I think I was being sarcastic. This was coming from a complete point of sarcasm then in our chat. Like, Kevin Trapp is going to try to keep us out of relegation while we qualify for the Champions League because we win Europa League. And lo and behold, that happened. We finished 11th and we went to the Champions League.
Yeah.
So, Kaiserslautern, we'll see. You know, a win this weekend and I think you're good. But, you know, like I said, it'll be a lot of interesting that's going to happen these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, with one eye on that race, because it's so good, we also have to keep an eye on what's going in the Bundesliga as well. Not as much interest in what's going on at the top. Most everything is locked in place, but there is a lot that's going to affect Frankfurt. And we're going to get into that in a second. But it was an interesting week 32 for the top of the table. Some teams near the top really struggling against teams down lower. Leipzig down to 10 men, tying Hoffenheim 1-1. And Stuttgart just laying a hurt on Bayern, showing no mercy in a 3-1 finish there. Certainly Bayern's eye was on the Champions League, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But not a good day for the top. But then, of course, Leverkusen taking care of business with us. So where that leaves Frankfurt in 6th on 45 points. Freiburg right now is sitting at 41 points. With 2 matches left, with 6 points out there, Frankfurt is safe by 4 points. Now, we do have to end. We're going to talk about the match coming up with Borussia Monchengladbach, who's currently sitting at 13th. They have a lot, to play for still. They're mathematically, they should be safe. But you just never know what can happen. And then, of course, you got to finish out with Leipzig, and that's not going to be easy either because they have nothing to play for but pride. Barring catastrophe, they should keep their top 4 position. Garrett, what are you looking for here league-wide as far as the finish goes in the Bundesliga?
I'd love if we can beat Monchengladbach this weekend because we beat RB Leipzig earlier this year, but I think you're running into a situation where RB Leipzig may still need to wrap 4th up when they play us in the final match day. So get a win if you can this weekend, and here's to seeing a much better performance than what we saw on Sunday. As a team defensively, I think Ekitike's. I'm not too worried about him, but when we get chances, we got to convert because Monchengladbach has some talent that can make us pay when they're, on one.
Yeah. So, Union Berlin, who started the season colder than my ex's heart, has somehow found themselves back in a safe position. With things playing out the last couple of weeks here, we've got at 13th, 14th, Gladbach and Bochum tied on 33 points. Union Berlin 15th at 30 points. Mine's currently in that playoff position at 24th. I'm going to say Cologne and Darmstadt are both being relegated. Well, Darmstadt for sure. Cologne, no, they don't have enough in them to save anything. So between Mainz and Union Berlin, which one do you feel is going to go down?
Between Mainz and Union Berlin, let me eyeball this here because I'm also looking at form. Well, yeah, because they would play I would say, yeah, Köln are done. In theory, you would say Union are the ones to stay upright. They have a much better matchup this weekend against Köln, whereas Mainz have to take on Dortmund. How much is Dortmund going to rotate after wrapping up the tie PSG and getting to the Champions League final? I don't know, but I'd say Union gets in 15th and Mainz has to go play the 3rd place team in Zwei Bundesliga.
Yeah. And we saw what happened last week with Bayern Munich looking ahead to Champions League. games this week and how that affected their squad rotation, and even a team like Bayern having to deal with the depth. It doesn't work so well when you're going up against good teams. But that's a good segue you brought up. Let's talk about the Champions League for a minute, because that does impact Eintracht Frankfurt as well. Yesterday, Borussia Dortmund defeated PSG, 2-leg series. They win this 2-0 on aggregate. And today, in a very entertaining but controversial finish, Bayern went down 4-3 to Real Madrid. The officiating was not good, despite the history of this being a well-performing officiating group. They missed a lot of calls. I wasn't necessarily pulling for Bayern. I think the all-Germany final would have been good for the league as a whole. I just wish it wasn't those two sides. But the officiating certainly missed some stuff, and it's not good when there's 3 calls that kind of determine the outcome of the match, and especially a late tying goal from Bayern that gets called off for offsides when it appeared if they let it play out and go to review, it would have been onside. But nevertheless, Borussia Dortmund goes to the Champions League final, and they will face off against Real Madrid in a one-off in London here in a few weeks. Now, why that matters to Eintracht Frankfurt, as we've talked about previously, if Borussia Dortmund finishes 5th in the Bundesliga, which is where they should end up right now. That's usually a Europa League spot. That would become a Champions League spot, with the addition of the 5th Champions League spot for the European coefficient, plus a Borussia Dortmund win in the Champions League final would push Eintracht Frankfurt into the Champions League for the 2024-2025 season. Garret, we've talked about it in the past. I'm not sure this weekend did anything to help our feelings on this. I got called out a little bit for my negativity and saying I wouldn't really want to see us in the Champions League next year. But then after watching the energy and excitement of the Champions League and knowing how the European Knights in Frankfurt are in Champions League, I don't know. I can't even bring myself to say that I would pull for Dortmund in a final, but I wouldn't totally be against it either. Where are you on this one? I talked to Matt last week. He was kind of on the fence about it. Where are you? Would you be okay with Dortmund winning a Champions League if it meant Eintracht Frankfurt goes to Champions League?
I would love that if Frankfurt get to the Champions League, then I think we will have a off season because you're going to see people that may have played in Champions League clubs that if their current club is not going to be in Champions League, they're going to find something. That's going to look, Frankfurt's going to have a little bit of a better outlook for good quality talent. And then you can hope that we can keep some of these talent in with consistent performances. The only other thing why I might want a Borussia Dortmund Champions League is for the sole purpose, because I think if there's anyone that I kind of have respect for as far as a player in the Bundesliga over the years, it's Marco Reus, who has not won when he joined Dortmund, Dortmund had won 2 titles in a row. Because he came out through Dortmund as a youth player and then went off. But he hasn't won he's won a Pokal, but he's not won a Champions League or a Bundesliga. So I think that would be there. And as the course of European football as a whole, I think it would be refreshing in a way if Dortmund wins. I don't want to go out completely root for them because I kind of still feel a little dirty in how I'm saying it. But I think, they've won some people over. And if anything, they have the fact that they've gotten to the final this year means that they have maybe grown a spine and can fight a little bit. So
we're not,
who knows what's going to happen at Wembley.
Yeah, we're not the Black and Yellow podcast here, but certainly there's a level of respect for the way that they've done it. They're not one of those clubs near the top that's out spending absurd amounts of money on players that aren't worthy of it. They're not, they do buy players from within the German system, but they're not literally buying out the best players on every team just to keep everyone else down, like a certain team down in Bavaria does. Borussia Dortmund does a good amount of player development. And we've seen it over the last few years that they're still a selling club. They will sell off their best players for the profit instead of keeping them in-house and going out and winning. But you're right. It says something about them that they have made it this far, sitting at 5th in the table right now. It's been a while since you've seen a team at the top of the Champions League with an average domestic season. I mean, you follow Champions League a little bit closer than I do, but in, my experience with Champions League, that's the cream of the crop. And that's not necessarily been Borussia Dortmund in the last few years. Am I wrong?
I think it's a great way of saying it, especially when you look at teams that might have been 3rd, 4th, 5th in their league are Premier League sides, which in reality, a Premier League side, I think there used to be a saying where either double digits of the 20 or Premier League sides because of how much money is in the TV deals. So the fact that you didn't have an English team in the Champions League semifinals is a statement this year. The fact that you had 2 German sides in the semifinals is an indicator that the top part of the Bundesliga is somewhat strong. I wouldn't say consistently strong when you get past the 5, when you see the point gap between Dortmund and us, but from Leverkusen to the top, who's, like you said, Leverkusen had been undefeated in all competitions. That's insane.
Yeah.
That we are at May the 8th and we're still saying that. And I think, when you look at their Champions League, they had a group of death in Dortmund and PSG, Newcastle, and Milan. I didn't think they were going to maybe not get out of the group. They won the damn thing. They lost 4-0 to Bayern at home this year. One-sided performance. And then they went to Munich 6 months later and beat them. And as much as it's an off-year Bayern, and I joke about the Harry Kane curse being an actual legit thing, as Bayern's not won a trophy for the first time since 2011, 2012.
If there was any hope for Thomas Tuchel, that all died today.
It is. You take note of it. And I know some people that are Dortmund fans. I know some people that are going to absolutely enjoy it. I'll tell you from our experiences of being in recently being supporters of a club that made a European final. Enjoy it, take it all in. And, that's all you can do.
While we're pumping up the Bundesliga for a minute here, let's get away from the dirty two that, we love to hate, but also, at this point in the year, we kind of got to pull for them a bit. Some statistics came out this year about attendance, and they're absolutely right in line with what we all know, that the Bundesliga is the greatest league, not just the first division, but top to bottom. The top 3 divisions are the best in the world for the fans, for the clubs. The average Bundesliga attendance this year, 39,366 through last week. The Zweite Liga average attendance, 29,124 for the second division. That is 7,000 more than the EFL Championship, and it's 3 times as high as the second division down in Italy. So even in the third division, the 3 Liga pulling in 9,761 a game compared to the third divisions in other countries. That's far and away the best. The best fans in the world are fans of German clubs, and we fill the stadiums week after week. I get it. There's an architecture thing there that whatever, certain countries have smaller stadiums. I don't care. German fans are the best in the world. They travel well. They support their teams at every level, no matter where they are. I've followed Eintracht Frankfurt through relegation and battling back to promotion, and there's been 40,000 plus in the stands. The greatest country for football in the world, in my opinion. Yes, I am biased on that, but also the numbers back it up. The fans are incredible. So shout out to all the Bundesliga fans at every level across Germany and across the world. Garrett, how about we get into previews?
Let's do it.
First up on the schedule, Saturday. We got kind of a split weekend again, but we got a day in between. A little rest day will be nice for the mothers too. We're going to start Saturday, May 11, 9:30 a.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. Traditional 15:30 in Germany. Borussia Monchengladbach versus Eintracht Frankfurt, ESPN Plus here in the USA. We got to get points here. We're not mathematically safe, but can we just put this to bed and finish sixth, please?
We have won 2 years in a row in Borussia Park. I think it's going to be 3. Monchengladbach 1, Eintracht Frankfurt 2. Ekitike makes it 4 out of 4. And who's going to score a goal? Ferris Chaibi. That's my other one.
Could this be, there's not a lot on the line for Frankfurt. We're pretty well secure. But also for Gladbach, they have a little bit to fight for. We talked about it when we were doing table talk. They should be safe. But also they do have a reason to fight. And that kind of scares me a little bit. I'd like to say we've been better on the road or we've been better at home. We haven't been better anywhere. We're just inconsistent as hell. It's a roller coaster year, and we're just hoping the brakes work when we get to the finish instead of crashing out. I'm comfortable taking a point from this one. I'll go with 2-2. And honestly, that would serve me fine. As long as we're not having to fight from behind. If we go down 2-0 at some point and really struggle, offensively, if we can't move the ball well, if we're not passing well, then I think we're going to have a bigger issue. But I like what Ekitike is doing. I want to see Mario Götze go out strong at the end of this campaign. If we throw in guys like Larson and Knauf that are really going to be relied upon next year, I'd love to see that. But I'm going to say 2-2. And I agree with you, Ekitike. There's no reason to think he won't keep it going. And I'm going to go back to Marmoush. I think he's due. If we could get the two of them on the same page at the same time, that would be awesome also. Garrett, Sunday, I'll be taking the day off from football. I'll be watching. Actually, I won't be taking the day off. I got to go watch my kid play. We're going to be playing up at Mount Pleasant, Cap City 1847 Athletic. Number 22, Lily Monroe. I'm going with a brace from her, and they're going to win 7-1. I don't think anyone else is going to be watching, but I'm telling you, they're going to win 7-1, and my kid's going to throw up a brace, and I just might do laps around the neighborhood. I don't know. I'm looking forward to that one. But anyway, Mount Pleasant, old home of yours, right?
Fire up ships, land of the maroon and gold, and yeah.
Fire up. And then on Monday, May 13th, 1:30 p.m., according to my computer, which I think is right, I don't know, this one should be a free stream on DAZN.com. Registration is free. The stream is free. Shout out to them for adding more and more Frauen Bundesliga to their platform. We'll put that out on the socials if the stream is up. I got conflicting feedback on that. But Freiburg comes to town. Eintracht Frankfurt, pretty much secure. Again, like the men, not mathematically secure, but should be solidly in third place for the end of the season. This should be a closeout match. As much as the match against Hoffenheim was well played and a business trip, this should be defending the home turf with nothing else to think about but 3 points.
100% agree. We've played Freiburg twice. We've 4-0 in Freiburg earlier. We beat them in the Pokal. I don't see any reason why it won't be 3 out of 3. 3-1, Frankfurt.
I'm going to go 4-0. I think this is one where they score early and they keep it forward. I don't think Freiburg has anything to play for. And I like the way that we were physical and use our physical play in the midfield to open up offensive opportunities. I think it's going to be a Shakira Martinez day. I'm expecting a goal from her, possibly a couple others. It'd be nice to see a couple of players exiting, get an opportunity to get on the score sheet as well. But give me a 4-0 victory for the Frauen over Freiburg. Garrett, we went over a lot, and yet we are still on time. What else you got for me?
Other than that, I agree with you. Happy Mother's Day to all that are, getting this day on Sunday. Thanks to all that everyone does. And for anyone else that's wondering in this United States, some other soccer, I recommend 5 p.m. CBS Sports Network, Saturday, Detroit City taking on Phoenix Rising. So, if you are looking for some lower league American soccer and what may happen outside the top league in this country, that's my outside of Frankfurt recommendation.
Garrett, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me Twitter, Instagram, Discord at GM Comats, and 451 Detroit Tunnel Talk at F451 DET, Majors Detroit, TMSNX Detroit. Also doing some cool Detroit stuff. So yeah, that's all the ways you can find me. Eintracht Frankfurt Detroit, Detroit SGE.
And you can find me on all the socials, Peloton, Instagram, Discord, Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it. All the sites at C in the DE313. Of course, the show, HEFpod.com, all the links there right at the top. And of course, all the people we have to thank. I should do it weekly. And of course, we get to the end of the year. Think of everyone I have not thanked enough. Producer Nathan Kwarta in St. Louis. Outstanding work every week dealing with our technical issues, our audio issues. And he's a fantastic artist who does a lot of the show work that you see on Spotify or wherever you're listening to our show. He does a great work with the art. It's created some fantastic coasters in my basement too. And of course, Miles Erich, who designed our new HEFpod logo this year. Awesome work by him. All these people work hard in the background. We talk almost daily about what we're going to do going forward. And it's all led by Brian Sanders in Kansas City. The man who created HEFpod does excellent stuff to keep us on track. He does a great job tracking down one-off interview episodes as well. And of course, Tankard for lending us their music, Roy Hammer. It's the same sound every week because it's the perfect sound. And we thank them for lending their music to us. We hope we do the honor of Eintracht Frankfurt and all of our listeners well by putting up a good episode week after week. And that's it. Episode 313 is over and done. And we're going to talk to you again next week before the final week of Bundesliga action. And we should have a lot more clarity on where things are headed into the summer break. We hope everyone enjoys the weekend in the warm weather. We will talk to you next week. Cheers. According to my computer, which I think is right, Eintracht Frankfurt, the perpetually sixth best team in the Bundesliga.